गुड मॉर्निंग, गुड इवनिंग, गुड आफ्टरनून, जो भी जब लेक्चर देख रहे हैं उसके अकॉर्डिंग दिस इज अंकिता अरोरा बैक विद इसका चैप्टर नंबर 3. Till now we have covered almost 5 questions of chapter number 3, and now we are going to understand and learn question number 6 that relates to what is financial control. As the name suggests, financial controls mean जहाँ पे भी है transactions related to the finance, related to money, control from the start, from the scratch, from the source has to be implemented, and this control should continue up to the reporting segment. That means control on financial aspects that are that financial aspect that are working in your information system, information asset. So what do you understand by financial control? We have to give it first. Now see, what do you understand by financial control? This is the first question. Then major control techniques. What are the control techniques? This is answer number 2. Very slowly we will try to draft each and every concept, and I will try that very slowly. I will make you understand it and learn it. Okay. So financial control के लिए लिखा क्या है? What have been written over here for the financial control is that this control are defined as procedure exercised by system user personnel. सबसे पहले the first and the foremost thing, it is exercised by who exercise this control? The user of system. System user personnel exercise it. Okay, the financial control is exercised by whom? The system user personnel. Now, these financial controls are implemented on what? They are implemented on source, on transaction origination, on documents before system input. Suppose if you want to insert, to insert an entry, you want to give a journal entry, you want to insert an entry in the system. What as a user you have to identify? Suppose I'm the purchase manager, and I ask the purchase accountant. The accountant I'm asking कि उसे क्या करना है accountant को, he has to make an entry, purchase entry in the books of account. Before making the entry, सबसे पहले the accountant is responsible to check the bill. That means source. Before transaction origination, he have to check the source, means financial control should be implemented over source. कि अगर purchase manager बोल रहा है, if the purchase manager is asking to book purchase of 50 lakh rupees, but he will first see the invoice whether the purchase is actually of 50 lakh or not. The items that have been asked to book in the entry, whether this item are been purchased, so he will check. So there is a financial control on source. On transaction origination, before transaction origination also the financial controls are implemented. He will check, the accountant will check what? He will check the documentation before inserting the information in system as an output. So what have been given? The user, system user personnel will implement this control over the source. He will implement in transaction origination and documents before system input. Before entering the information in the system, he will first check the documents. So the first point, who is the one who exercise the control? Exercised by system user. System user personnel exercise the control over the source, transaction origination, documents before system input. Now, this area exercise the control over transaction processing. This financial control also gives control. Here in financial control, control is implemented over transaction processing also, using the reports generated by computer application. Computer generates what report. Now using that report आप देख सकते हैं कि ट्रांजैक्शन प्रोसेस कैसे हो रहा है, whether the process of the transaction is correct or not. That means purchase account जो accountant है before entering the purchase entry क्या वो check कर रहा है. इसके बाद जो एंट्री की परचेस अकाउंट जो अकाउंटेंट ने परचेस की एंट्री करी, वो एंट्री के बाद जो प्रॉफिट प्लस होके सेल्स होना चाहिए. द प्रोडक्ट हैव बीन परचेस करके क्या हो गया, द परचेस हैव बीन रिकॉर्डेड इन योर सिस्टम. आपकी बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट में परचेसेस रिकॉर्ड हो गई. लेकिन जितना आपको प्रॉफिट मार्जिन चाहिए, दैट प्रॉफिट मार्जिन जो है आपका, दैट शुड बी एडेड टू द कॉस्ट एंड फिर आपकी सेल्स प्राइस बननी चाहिए. तो यहाँ पर ये भी चेक किया जाता है पूरा ट्रांजैक्शन की प्रोसेसिंग, क्या सही प्रॉफिट मार्जिन ऐड हुआ, क्या किसी पर्टिकुलर कस्टमर को ओवर द लिमिट डिस्काउंट तो नहीं दिया है. दिस आर सर्टेन थिंग. ट्रांजैक्शन प्रोसेसिंग यहाँ चेक होगी एंड ट्रांजैक्शन प्रोसेसिंग चेक करके ये कैसे चेक होगी, यूजिंग द रिपोर्ट. दिस इज चेक यूजिंग द रिपोर्ट दैट इज जनरेटेड बाय कंप्यूटर एप्लीकेशन टू रिफ्लेक्ट, जिसमें आप चेक करेंगे कोई अनपोस्टेड आइटम तो नहीं है, कोई नॉन मॉनिटरी चेंजेस तो नहीं है. Item you can count, amount of transactions for settlement of transaction, processed and reconciliation. That means यहाँ पे कंट्रोल एक तो होगा सोर्स पे, ट्रांजैक्शन ओरिजिनेशन पे, document before system input. Then transaction processing could be checked using the report that is generated through the computer application in order to check the unposted item, non-monetary changes, then item count and amount of transactions for settlement of transaction that are processed and reconciliation of application to general ledger. So this is financial control. Financial control is implemented by the user of the system on source, on transaction origination, on documents before input. इसके बाद जो कंट्रोल होता है वो प्रोसेसिंग पे होता है. प्रोसेसिंग पे कंट्रोल कैसे देखते हैं, यूजिंग द रिपोर्ट दैट इज जनरेटेड बाय द कंप्यूटर. इसमें आप क्या क्या देखते हैं, इन यहाँ आप देखेंगे अनपोस्टेड आइटम, चेंजेस ऑफ नॉन मॉनिटरी आइटम, आइटम काउंट आप चेक कर सकते हैं. आप चेक कर सकते हैं द अमाउंट ऑफ ट्रांजैक्शन दैट आर सेटल्ड, सेटलमेंट ऑफ अमाउंट ऑफ ट्रांजैक्शन दैट आर प्रोसेस, जो ट्रांजैक्शन प्रोसेस हुआ था कितने ट्रांजैक्शंस हैं, द अमाउंट ऑफ ट्रांजैक्शन दैट हैव बीन सेटल्ड आफ्टर प्रोसेसिंग, प्रोसेस्ड ट्रांजैक्शन कौन कौन से सेटल हो चुके हैं. रिकंसिलेशन किया जा सकता है तो जनरल रेजर, तो दिस इज व्हाट रिकंसिलेशन हो गया जनरल रेजर में. ये सारी चीजें, दिस इज ऑल अबाउट फाइनेंशियल कंट्रोल. नाउ पॉज द वीडियो एंड ट्राई टू रिकॉल व्हाट वी हैव अंडरस्टूड. तो हमने कहीं ना कहीं ये समझा है कौन एक्सरसाइज करता है ये कंट्रोल्स. तो दिस इज एक्सरसाइज बाय यूजर ऑफ सिस्टम. ठीक है, यूजर ऑफ सिस्टम हो गया. सेकेंड वॉज कहाँ पे यहाँ पे कंट्रोल लगता है, तो सबसे पहले सोर्स, सोर्स के बाद ट्रांजैक्शन ओरिजिनेशन, ट्रांजैक्शन ओरिजिनेशन के बाद डॉक्यूमेंट बिफोर द सिस्टम इनपुट. Then you can also check the transaction processing. You can also give a control on the transaction processing using the reports that are generated by the computer. Using the reports that are generated by the computer, you can check what? You can check the unposted item, you can check non-monetary changes, item count you can check, you can check the amount of transaction process that have been settled, then reconciliation of the system generated report with the general ledger. You can also check all this. This is financial control. Now moving forward, that is what are the techniques. आपके techniques क्या है financial control के? Very very simple. Just see the logic. Okay, see the logic. I want to control what I want to control on the basis of finance. So financial control technique मेरी सबसे पहले क्या होनी चाहिए? The first thing is finance. Finance relates to money. So check whether the transaction has authorization. Check for the authorization. सबसे पहले क्या करना है? चेक करना है. क्या लिखा है? This entails obtaining the authority to perform some act, typically accessing such asset as accounting or application entry. Check for authorization. Are you authorized to make such entry? Example. Let's take an example. This is a bank. This is what? Bank. In bank, बैंक लिंक इज यूज्ड. बैंक में क्या सॉफ्टवेयर यूज होता है? बैंक में बैंक लिंक करके एक सॉफ्टवेयर यूज होता है. ठीक है. नाउ देयर इज अ जूनियर मैनेजर. आपका मैनेजर है. ठीक है. मैनेजर कौन है? क्रेडिट मैनेजर. क्रेडिट मैनेजर का काम क्या है? क्रेडिट मैनेजर का काम है कि लोन जो है, लोन से रिलेटेड all the documents that are related to loan he has to check. Who has to check? The credit manager has to check. But he, after checking the documents that are related to loan, what he will do, if he finds that all the documents are fair enough, he, the person who wants loan, is has the credibility, then he will put the proposal for loan sanctioning before the मैनेजर. एम दैट इज द सीनियर मैनेजर. अपने सीनियर मैनेजर को वो प्रपोजल देगा. That means credit manager has the authority to check the credit worthiness. He has authority to maintain the login of that person कि इस person का हमारे पास proposal आया है. But the credit manager does not have the authority to sign the document and sanction the loan. He does not have authority to sanction the loan because sanctioning of loan belongs to, ये authority manager की है, and manager will make an entry in the system that the loan has been sanctioned. That means first for every transaction check the authorization. That means you have to check the authority to perform some act. If you have the authority to perform the act, that means okay. So you, when you are checking the authority, that is a technique of financial control. Check the authority to perform the act. That typically, example, typically accessing such asset. Do you have the authority to access the asset? I am the auditor of a bank. I am the concurrent auditor of a bank. I am allowed to look. यहाँ पे क्या है? यहाँ पे जितना भी सिस्टम है उसमें मैं देख सकती हूँ. बट there are certain things जहाँ पे as an auditor I can't see the whole over system. मैं पूरा system नहीं देख सकती. Whatever authority I have been granted मैं उतना ही system में क्या कर सकती हूँ? Bank link use करके transaction I can see. That means check the authority for performing some act that typically relates to accessing an asset. I have been granted limited access and that too read only access. An auditor is granted read only access in the bank. You know, an auditor is granted what? An auditor is granted only read only access in bank. So he has to see what? First thing, or authority to perform act you have to check, especially relating to accessing the asset. ठीक है. First is authority. Then second thing, budget. Budget, these are estimates of amount of time or money expected to be spent during a particular period, project or event. Financial control, you have to do financial control, and financial control covers budgeting. You have to check whether the particular amount that has been spent are they within the budget. Are your are the people of the organization, the manager is allowed to spend that much of amount in a particular year, in a particular period, or for a particular event. So check it. The estimate of amount of time or money expected, it is what is it is the estimate. It is what it is. Estimate of what? Estimate of time or money that is expected to be spent on a particular period, project or event. That is expected to be spent during a particular period, project, event. Budget alone is not an effective control. Budget must be compared with the actual performance. Making a budget is not an effective control, but obviously we have to check the variances. Variances, how we check the variances? We compare the actual expenditure with the budgeted one. In this way, we check what? We check the variances. and we try to solve this. We try to what? Solve the causes that have lead to that variances. So first is authorization, second is checking the budget in related to time and money that is expected to be spent on a particular project, on a particular event, or for a particular period of time. However, budget is not the effective, budget alone is not an effective control. You have to check for the variances, you have to check it with the actual performance and try to find the root cause of that variance and try to sort it. Then third is cancellation of document. This mark a document in such a way to prevent its reuse. Cancel the document, that means check. चेक क्या हो गया? चेक जैसे ही क्या हो जाता है, चेक विड्रॉल हो जाता है. हैव यू सीन इन बैंक व्हेन यू यूज अ चेक, जैसे ही आपका चेक का क्या हो जाता है, आपका अमाउंट, चेक का जो अमाउंट है ट्रांसफर कर दिया जाता है, दे क्रॉस द चेक. इफ एनीवन हैज डन कॉन्करेंट ऑडिट इन द बैंक, ही मस्ट बी नोइंग, जैसे ही चेक का क्या हो जाता है, काम हो जाता है, किसी के चेक का क्लियरेंस हो जाता है, इफ देयर इज क्लियरेंस ऑफ चेक, देयर इज अ प्रैक्टिस कि चेक को क्रॉस कर दिया जाता है. दे क्रॉस द चेक. They cross the check. Why they cross the check? In order to prevent its reuse. In order to prevent the reuse, the check is crossed. That means cross the important document in such a way that it cannot be reused. So mark in such a way that it prevents its reuse. This is a typical control over invoice, marking them as paid processed. Have you seen when you take delivery from a mall? आपने क्या किया? मॉल में जाते, मॉल में जाके you take delivery of your goods. He stamped your invoice with delivered. He stamps your invoice with what? Delivered. Being delivered means you have already taken the delivery of the goods, so this invoice cannot be reused. This invoice cannot be reused by saying that we have not been delivered by our goods. ठीक है? The third is cancellation of document. First was authorization. Second was what? First was authorization. Second relates to Second relates to budget, and third is cancellation of document. So authorization, budget, and cancellation of document. And now third is documentation. Third is what? Documentation. Now what is documentation? Written typed explanation of action to be taken on a specific transaction. Written, either handwritten or typed explanation on task that is to be taken. So what action are you are going to take, you have to document it. We will be seeing chapter number 5. वहाँ पे भी क्या होता है कि जब आप डिस्कस करते हैं सॉफ्टवेयर कैसा चाहिए, प्रपोज सॉफ्टवेयर कैसा चाहिए, so you do what? You did documentation. तो here also क्या होता है, जैसे कि if you have recovered money from the data ने पैसा दे दिया, तो we give a receipt. We give a receipt. तो receipt क्यों देते हैं? It is a written documentation that we have received certain amount from the data. So this is what documentation, written हो या फिर typed documentation of action taken, on action that is taken on specific transaction. तो किसी specific transaction के लिए क्या action, whether you have taken or you are going to take, you have to document it. The fourth thing, authorization, budget, then cancellation, and D is documentation. Can you see logical? Can you see the mnemonic A, B, C, D here? Authorization, budget, cancellation, documentation. ठीक है? Now again D. D is for dual control. D is for dual control. What is dual control? Now dual control means what? Two people simultaneously having control on a thing. Don't get confused with dual access here, because dual access का मतलब है two people having access on same thing. No, यहाँ पे किस तरह से dual access बोला है? Two people having control on one thing. That means, let us understand. This means two people simultaneously having access on an asset. That means, for example, here it has been given ATM है, जो ATM है, ATM में क्या होता है, एक बार वॉल्ट खोला जाता है, खोल के फिर से उसमें कैश डिपॉजिट किया जाता है, ताकि हम लोग क्या कर सकते हैं, एटीएम से पैसे विड्रॉ कर सकते हैं। सिमिलरली जब डिपॉजिट मशीन है, व्हेन देयर इज अ डिपॉजिट मशीन, यू डिपॉजिट द मनी, देन वहां पे क्या होता है, इन नेक्स्ट डे दे विड्रॉ द अमाउंट फ्रॉम दैट deposit machine. So the concept states that there should be dual control. At least two people should open it. At least two people should open it. That means having dual control. It is not about dual access on a particular thing. It is about dual control. Okay. So this entails having two people simultaneous access on asset. Example: depositories of bank 24-hour teller machine should be accessed and emptied with two people present. Many people confuse dual control with dual access, but these are distinct different. Dual access means access function between two people. Once access is achieved, only one person handle the asset. With teller machine, two teller would open the depository vault together, but only one will have the deposit envelope. खोलेंगे दोनों, the deposit vault जो है, that will be opened by two people. That means having control of two people. But envelope एक के हाथ में ही जाएगा, means आपको जैसे बैंक के बैंक लॉकर को क्या करना है, दो लोगों के सामने खोलना है, दैट इज ड्यूअल कंट्रोल. दो लोगों के सामने खोल रहे, दैट्स कंट्रोल. इट इज नॉट एक्सेस राइट, इट इज जस्ट कंट्रोल, ड्यूअल कंट्रोल. So what we have done: A, B, C, D square. A for authorization, B for budget, C for cancellation of document, D for documentation, and again D is dual control. Now covering input output verification. नाउ इनपुट आउटपुट वेरिफिकेशन क्या है, इनपुट आउटपुट वेरिफिकेशन में क्या होता है, this relates to comparing the information provided by system with input document. Compare the information provided by the computer system with input document.